up, Internet? Welcome to episode 3 of Super Turbocast. I'm your host, Virgil Davis. Joining me tonight, as always, my two good friends. Justin Carter.
Hey, yeah!
The new Metal Messiah, of course. And Mr. Iori himself, Kyle Eastman.
It's turbo time.
It sure is, Kyle. But also joining us is the bearded prince.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me.
Justin T. Fatiller. How are you guys tonight?
Swell.
Are you turbo?
Super.
Are you super turbo?
Super turbo.
I'm fantastic.
That's great. How are you, JC?
I'm just pretty much cast.
You guys look like you're having a good old time over there.
It's a dandy.
A space dandy time. Space dandy? Anyone? No?
Yep. Space Dandy.
Space dandy? Dude, that's an awesome anime. Have you watched that?
I did not even know that was a real thing.
Oh, it's so good. Have you seen it, Teef?
No, I just know of Space Cowboy.
Dude, Space Dandy is awesome anyway. If this is your first time listening, this is not an anime podcast. This is a gaming podcast where we talk each week about the past, present, and future of gaming and other gaming-related things. We're going to start off with the news. First up, Sony Online Entertainment was sold by Sony to Columbia Nova something or another, basically a really rich company. So basically the guys who made DC Universe Online, they can now make Xbox games and stuff. So that was the thing, which is really weird because, you know, they had Sony in the name, and the fact that they are going independent is kind of weird. I forget what they're called now. What do you guys, how do you feel about that?
I'm
no real.
There's some games that I've never played.
Yeah.
And it's also a company I know nothing about. I mean, they did what, like EverQuest?
Yeah, they did. I think EverQuest. I could be completely wrong about that, but I know they did DC Universe and some other stuff.
Yay.
Yeah.
There you go, Xbox guys.
Is EverQuest not the same as like Champions and Champions and Norath?
Yeah, I think you're right because I know Champions was made by SOE. I'm 90% sure.
Could be. They were sold to Columbus Nova, and they're going by Daybreak Game Company now.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I think probably the most impactful thing that came from that is that it's just a Sony-owned studio and they sold it.
yeah, and I think
that's
that
just the weird thing about it.
yeah, because they are hurting financially, and PlayStation is basically the only thing that makes them money these days. So I think that just kind of shows more about that. But no one here at this table really plays those games. So moving on. Whoa.
Bottom.
Help me.
Bottom left quarter.
Help me. Just kidding. Nintendo has a affiliate program with Nintendo, or not with Nintendo, with YouTube creators. Usually how it works, a YouTuber makes a video, 40% of the revenue goes to YouTube, 60% goes to the creator. But if it's a Nintendo video before, 60% went to Nintendo, 40% went to YouTube, and you got zilch. And with their program here, basically makes it to where you get 40% of the already 60% cut, and they get like 20%. That's actually completely wrong. But they basically make it to where you can make something off of it. But the bad thing about this, there's had a lot of controversy over it because a lot of YouTubers see it as if they're talking about their game and playing their game, especially for someone like PewDiePie who has 34 million subscribers, it's free publicity. And the other bad thing about it is that basically the way their affiliate program works is you submit a video for approval, and within 3 to 5 days they approve it, and then you can upload it.
Yeah, weren't they saying that there was some games you couldn't do?
Exactly. Smash Bros is one of those. So Smash Bros, if it's on YouTube, you can't make money off of it.
Which is crazy because it's such a popular game
Yeah,
for Nintendo.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Smash Bros, Bayonetta 2 is one that you just can't make money off of.
Weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, it's a very strange call, all around. I don't know exactly. I'm not super big into how the YouTube thing works, but just the fact that Nintendo's like, oh, you guys are going to advertise for us and we get paid. Nintendo needs to branch out and get into this realm as much as possible, and yet they're making it more difficult and making it to where, like you said, the guys like PewDiePie, if you let that guy make a little bit of money and everything, it could be very beneficial for both parties involved, but this way just sounds greedy.
Yeah.
Well, it also Nintendo's going to be they're protective of their franchises. So they just don't want their product blasted everywhere. I mean, I kind of get that, But with the headline of this story, with all this percentage crap going on, it's just a big mess.
Yeah. And the thing about that is that if Nintendo say you have a review that isn't exactly positive, Nintendo can just say, "Oh, I don't like that, denied," and
Yeah, then you can't.
It creates this whole. Also, one thing they said, they can change the percentages at any time that they choose.
Oh boy.
They can make it to where you make 5% if they want. It's a whole.
That's really weird for Nintendo because they're not really a greedy company.
It's weird. It's like I think they just don't get this. I don't think they get how important YouTube is these days to like games getting out there and getting recognition.
Yeah.
Because PewDiePie, he how many viewers? I mean, he has millions.
He has 34 million subscribers.
That's insane.
Which is incredible. And he has he uploads videos every day and gets, I want to say, probably 5 million views a day on each video.
Ridiculous. Well, it was like here a while back when you're reading the thing, and I don't remember exactly when it was going on, but there was the guy that was like super high up in Nintendo, and he had never heard of Xbox Live or PlayStation Network. It's almost like Nintendo just doesn't know what the internet is.
Yeah, and it's not to go back to the
Here we go, but Nintendo bashing.
not to go back to that Nintendo bashing 3DS thing.
We love Nintendo.
Pow! We do. It's like they don't get that that we've known about the new 3DS for 6 months now.
Yeah.
They released the quarter 4 sales, and they were like, oh, it's surprisingly low. And it's like, no, it's not surprisingly low. We've known about a new 3DS since August. No one's gonna buy a normal 3DS at Christmas when we know we're getting. And it's like they don't understand that with the internet, as soon as something is announced anywhere, it's known throughout the world.
Yeah, when they released the classic Nintendo model with the classic Nintendo controller on the cover of the 3DS XL, I was pretty stoked about that one and the Persona one.
Yeah, the Persona one's awesome.
And I didn't go buy one because the new ones were coming. I mean, why not wait on a better console?
Exactly. Anybody who runs out and bought one of those two probably made a poor financial decision.
And that's why those sales weren't up to snuff, because anyone who knows just a small amount of anything knows that a new console's coming.
And those poor guys that didn't think it was coming to America, and they ordered them from overseas.
Yeah.
And had to spend a little extra money, and then lo and behold, a month later they were releasing in America.
Yeah.
I feel really bad for the people who bought all the face plates for the normal 3DS.
Yeah.
They bought those and like,
upset.
I can't wait to use them. But
yeah.
Anyway.
Just for clarification, that's me they're talking about, and then I'm also talking about. I was the idiot that imported the Persona 3 3DS XL, and I don't regret it. No regrets.
I'll defend you here though, Kyle, because you got
a lot of love went into it.
You got the LL. It says LL Cool Kyle.
Jay. Yeah, that's me.
You did get a special edition of the Persona Q game.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is that the inside of the case that comes with that edition has Nintendo LL.
It says 3DS LL,
3DS
which
LL.
is pretty neat.
Yeah.
And I mean, I put in hours of work, and after it was done, the American model that I swapped the motherboards with, I made money off of it, so I didn't spend as much on it. So I stand by my choice.
And hey, you had it before everyone else.
I did, and
So-
I've still yet to see another person have one out in the wild.
Yeah, your cool level just went up by 10 points.
Yeah.
Your social link.
Yeah,
Your
social link
your social
max.
link. I think that with that, it kind of just shows that I don't think they get quite how. I mean, they have to get how news works, but it's
Right.
like they just ignore it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't understand how the guy didn't know about PlayStation Network and Xbox Live.
Yeah,
How do you not know
blew
about your
my mind.
competitors?
Yeah.
Right. And I think Nintendo doesn't. I think Nintendo does not see themselves as.
I mean,
actual
no one in that
competition.
company owned an Xbox or a PlayStation. They're gamers or game creators and cons. I don't get it.
Well, and I understand at least the Xbox, because in Japan that thing, it doesn't sell. But the PlayStation, are you kidding me? But I almost feel like Nintendo has this, here's our plan for the next 10 years, and we're just not going to deviate from it. They're just like, I don't understand. It's like those toy soldiers that you wind up and let them go, and they can just walk one direction.
One direction.
And you would think that they would really try to start to expand what they're doing because, I mean, for the Wii, it obviously wasn't working for them.
Yeah, the Wii sold well, but the Wii U has has not.
I feel like it's
It's
so
like one of the
sold on
worst
a
attach
gimmick.
rates of any
Everybody saw the
console.
motion gaming, and they were like, "Oh, that's super cool," because no one else was doing it. But then
Yeah.
once you got it and you saw how terrible the controllers were picking up, Wii Motion Plus fixed a lot of it. I
it
mean,
did. Too little, too late, though.
Yeah, too late in the Wii's lifetime for sure.
Yeah, the
For
attach rate for the Wii is extremely low, too.
Yeah, and for most people, it became it's cool when my grandma comes over or I go see
we
a
can play
family,
bowling.
and then the rest of the time it collected dust.
It's great for kids for sure because man, those things are stout. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yes.
they're tiny machines and they seem kind of cheap, but man, I was playing Super Smash Brothers Brawl on mine, and I had it set out on the coffee table because the GameCube controller cords were so short, and that thing fell off the coffee table with Super Smash Brothers Brawl in it, and it kept playing. I mean,
Yeah.
it didn't even hiccup or anything. I just picked it back up and set it back, and it just kept going. So,
Yeah.
I mean, those machines are stout, especially for kids.
And the Wii U has proven that, too, man. That little Nintendo's hardware in general is very tough.
Yeah,
Yeah, back when G4 was a thing, I remember watching
G4.
An episode where they took it was back in the PS2 original
I remember
Xbox GameCube era, and they dropped them like off a 20
They
story
did multiple
building.
drop tests.
And I'll be goddamn if the GameCube still played after like every test.
Yeah.
Of course, the PS2 and the Xbox were trashed after like the first one.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, kudos to their design.
Yeah.
It's,
And what is the failure rate of the Wii? I mean, it's super low.
It's very marginal.
Super low.
yeah. I just actually got rid of my launch Wii that I had for years, and I never had a problem with it at all.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, out of the Wii, the PS3, and the 360, which the 360 isn't even in that argument because of its failure rate, but I think it's much lower than the PS3. I mean, the last time I checked, the PS3's was like 9% or something like that.
I saw 9 or 10%.
Yeah, and I think the Wii's was like 6 or 7%. I mean, that's great numbers.
One thing that I really do like what Nintendo is doing though is they are making their consoles backwards compatible.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like the only ones who's really embracing that.
Yes. And they're appreciating the people that have bought their previous consoles and have all that game collection. It's like, hey, buy our next console and you're not wasting your money. You can still play your old games.
Well, and not only that, the Wii U was backwards compatible in a lot of ways that most consoles weren't. I mean, it wasn't even the games. It's like the controllers carried over too, and were very usable and very versatile.
yeah, we had a conversation, Kyle, the other day about backwards compatibility with Nintendo's hardware, and how with their next console, the tablet,
how's that gonna work?
It might
Will it work?
pose an issue.
Yeah.
Because you can only use one. So I have no idea. I feel like the next Nintendo hardware should bundle in just a controller, and keep the backwards compatibility with the tablet so they can explore ideas like Nintendo likes to do. But bundle it in.
Don't make
with
it
a control.
with Nintendo. Don't make it the batter of the cake. Make it the icing.
It's kind of like I talked about last week that I think that Nintendo should have a console that is as much like the PS4 or Xbox One or whatever the next console is as possible, because that way it makes it easier for third parties to be on their platform.
Yeah.
They really need to feature a better controller than their Wii remotes. The Pro controller is great.
Yeah, that thing's pretty fantastic.
Why not spend a little more time and really perfect it and then use that as your main controller? Now, I don't know if this is a rumor or where I heard this, but are they going to make it to where you can use more than one gamepad?
They talked about it at the very first, and then, I mean, it quickly became, apparent that no game is ever going to use it because there's just not enough people who even,
Yeah, and could you imagine? It's hard enough to develop with one gamepad. Could you imagine making it compatible with two?
Yeah, like the
It'd be
one
a
gamepad
nightmare.
we have isn't implemented at all, much less two. But moving on to the next story, Uncharted 4. Getting Uncharted 4 to run at 60 frames per second is, quote, really fucking hard, says Naughty Dog. This article kind of talks about how targeting 60 frames per second for the upcoming PlayStation 4 game Uncharted 4 is kind of difficult. It's with this whole 1080p 60 frames per second thing. I think it can really hold back some games, to for it to be able to run at that frame rate and that with that graphic fidelity. It's weird because the 60 frames per second thing, it's been a PC thing, but it's never really been a standard for consoles until now, and I don't know what the sudden interest with it is.
A good example, I really got into Destiny, and it runs at 1080p, but it's 30 frames per second. But man, that game's beautiful and
It's smooth,
and
too.
it's buttery smooth. I didn't really fault it too much for its 30 frames per second. What I faulted that game for is the monotony of it.
Yeah,
But
just some poor designs.
yes, but the gameplay is buttery smooth for sure.
Yes, it
I
is.
got it for a minute. Can we just take a minute? I'm on this article right now.
What in the world is
It
it?
features the creepiest picture
the Nathan
of
Drake
Nathan Drake I
smirking.
have ever seen in my life.
We're gonna have to attach that. In the
Yeah,
comments.
I'll insert this into the video version.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
like a creepy pedophile look for sure.
It's like, man, those graphics are pretty
It
smooth.
was
I
like
like
the guy
that
from
60
Quantum
frames.
Leap just went backwards through the
But yeah, I think that with 1080p and 60 frames, yeah, it's awesome when when it's possible, but it's not necessary.
But don't sacrifice the rest of your game.
Right.
It's almost like, do you want the car with all the extra torque and horsepower, or do you want the car with the better miles per gallon? What
Yeah.
are you realistically going to use?
And here's my thing, and it's with the Xbox One, it's where I think it falls short. I think 1080p 60 frames should not be the standard, but I think 1080p or 60 frames should be.
One or the other.
One or the other.
Yep.
If both, awesome. But if you don't have either, there's a problem. 900p at 30 frames should not be acceptable in 2015.
Pick your poison on that. Which one would you rather have in Uncharted?
In Uncharted, 1080p. Because I feel like it's not a game that really requires that 60 frames. It's a game I'm not used to at 60 frames. I don't need it at 60 frames. But like a shooter, like a first-person shooter, I would prefer to have 60 frames
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, I
For a
played-
fighting game especially.
You
that's
have to have it
essential.
in fighting games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. With the frame rate issue, I played extensively both versions of The Last of Us, and yes, I noticed the smoothness in the remaster, but it didn't really change my experience as far as what I liked about the game. I mean, yeah, of course I noticed it, but it just,
See, for me, especially the multiplayer, I did notice a big difference. Man, we booted it up and started playing. I was like, man, this is going to be so much fun, because it was, like Teef said earlier, buttery smooth.
So to kind of reiterate on the quote, the quote was from Neil Druckmann, who is the director. I think I could be totally wrong about that. I know he's heavily involved in it. He could be the writer. I'm not sure. I forget. But when asked by Game Informer how difficult it would be to get the game to run at 60 frames, he said, quote, "That's true for any game. It was really hard on The Last of Us Remastered, and that's a game we had finished and we knew exactly what the end result needs to look like. And here with Uncharted 4, we're trying to push the boundaries of what this game can look like and do realistic, real-time cutscenes, and trying to do 60 frames is really hard." End quote. And especially when you look at like that reveal trailer, how it goes straight from the cutscene into the gameplay.
Amazing.
I don't blame it
looks
at
amazing.
all. Yeah. I don't blame them at all for that being difficult.
I'm not worried.
Yeah,
No.
I-
I'm not
Me
worried
either.
about Naughty Dog and Uncharted.
me either.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah, they have proven themselves that they're the best development team out there.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that they've proven time and time again. Again, even with The Last of Us Remastered, that, man, it's crazy. They took their own game of 2013 and within a year made it that much better.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty fantastic.
Now, I have a feeling, is this going to be the end of Nathan Drake? Is this going to be his last? No, you don't think so?
I don't know. You don't think so?
I don't think so. I have my own theories. I'm gonna keep them to myself.
You're going to keep
but-
it.
I really
well,
have.
I'm cool on
just
it.
watching the trailer, I just feel like
It's a very bleak game.
yes.
Well, a thief's end, and then all of a sudden he meets his brother, who is also consequently a
A
thief.
thief. I don't know, man. I
Or
kind of
Sully?
feel like this is the last.
Where's Sully?
Uncharted. Where's Sully?
He's a thief. He might end.
No. If they were if they were going to kill Sully, they were going to do it in.
Uncharted 1, when they tried to kill him twice.
No. Which one was it where he was like totally? You thought he was dead and then he wasn't. Was
it
that 2 or
three?
3?
It was 3.
Yeah,
was 3.
If they were going to kill him, they were going to kill him in 3. And I think that's where they solidified that they're not killing Sully. To kill him now, I feel like after that would just be.
That would be an insult to you. I feel like after teasing you so hard that he's dead.
Yeah, I thought he was dead
Yeah, I
too,
did
man.
too.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Yeah.
And I think that also kind of showed that that's not a series that they would really do that. Like Uncharted is not Last of Us.
Right, it's not trying to just pull your heartstrings.
It's a happy-go-lucky, action flick basically in game form.
Yeah, they should do a marketing campaign for Sully just like they did with Gears of War back. I think it was Gears 3. They had that family of brothers that were always like your fourth guy on your team, and that brother always got killed off. He got killed off in the first game. He got killed off. The second brother got killed off in the second game. So they had a poll, or if you will, for the third game where you get these T-shirts, and one would be like Carmine lives, and the other one would be like Carmine dies. And people voted, and that's how they decided the fate of Carmine.
Oh wow,
of that brother
that's
Carmine
neat.
in that
that's
game.
Cool.
Yeah.
So they have like a Sully lives, Sully dies kind of thing.
Yeah, again, I really think it'll be, if not Drake, his brother.
See, that's what weird. I think I don't know if Drake will die, but
Somebody's.
I
Gonna
feel like
croak.
this is the last Uncharted for a while, for like a long while.
He's gonna Danny Glover it. He's just gonna be like, I'm too old for this shit.
Yeah, you really get that vibe.
Well, my statement was not the end of Nathan Drake, as in like he dies. Like this is his last game that he's going to be.
That he
the
like
main
retires,
character.
if not. Yeah, and
if
you
they
can
make
kind of see
another
that.
Uncharted, or I don't think it's going to be Nathan. That's what I'm thinking. Like,
Yeah,
this might
and
be
he's
his
aged
last.
significantly.
Yes,
in that one,
that's
which
what I
is
was getting
awesome.
from the trailer. He just seems so beaten down. And
He looks tired.
Yes,
he looks tired as hell.
So I think that's what I was trying to make the point of was, is this his last game? As that he's going to be the guy, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
but my thoughts on that too is they're saying this one takes place like 5-7 years after the events of Uncharted 3, and yet he was retired. Like him and Elena were having their life together, so now he's kind of drug out of retirement, and then at the end of the game he's just gonna re-retire.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know?
I'm super excited.
I'm really excited. It's Naughty Dog again. It's gonna be awesome regardless.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But, So anyway,
yeah.
that's about it.
Sorry.
You guys got anything else to say on that?
Anything over there?
I think Nathan's wanted to quit spelunking in like every title,
Right.
and he keeps getting drugged back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it goes in that market.
And there's definitely going to be a multiplayer.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because I've never checked those out. I know
I haven't either.
I know JC. He's played them and he really praises them.
2 was good.
You know, and I think especially after what Naughty Dog has done with the multiplayer and The Last of Us, you know, that they really could really push that. for
Yeah, they had
Uncharted
something
4
special
too.
with The Last of Us.
It was
Surprisingly,
so balanced.
yeah, surprisingly good. I think that was the biggest surprise of that game. You know, everyone knew the single player was going to be great, and that was going to have an amazing story and production value. But I think people were really surprised by how good that multiplayer
Now, is there
was.
going to be Last of Us 2?
They haven't said.
Uncharted 4, or is there going like?
I mean, is there going to be a Last of Us number 2? I mean,
They haven't said, but I can all but assume.
I know they were saying there wouldn't be, but for that game to be so amazing and you make so much money off of
Exactly.
that title, it would sell. I mean, I don't know why.
Yeah, and they even said though at one point that like if we do another Last of Us, Joe and Ellie's story's done.
which I hope not. Which
They probably just don't want to kill any hype for whatever they got down the pipe.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to say anything about a Last of Us sequel, and then you release some new IP, which
Right.
is what I think they're going to do next, and then they'll come back to Last of Us by the third half of the PS4's life cycle.
Hey, we might see another Jack and Daxter. That's been up and down.
I would like to see, you know, maybe Ellie older as in Last of Us, you know.
Yeah.
number
for
2.
me, I will not be happy until I see Joel confronted about spoilers.
yes,
His lie.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that scene was just so good, and I need to see him confronted about it.
I disagree.
Well, you know what, JC, you can disagree all you want.
I think so too. I think they definitely left that kind of open, like
Yeah,
they were gonna.
that ending was so good.
Yeah.
It gave me chills. That game, all in all, is.
Dude, I mean,
I like yelled at my TV. I was like, "No, you son of a bitch!"
That's exactly why they should just leave it like it is, because of that ending.
Yeah.
How
I mean,
open
I
it
it was
understand.
like the
See, I'm the
Sopranos,
same-
the cut to black. You're
Yeah,
just like,
exactly.
wow.
Yeah, you make up your own. You decide whatever you want to think in your head about
Right.
what happens next.
See, I feel the same
Everybody
way
does.
about Final Fantasy X, and that's why I think Final Fantasy X-2 is a sin.
Well, in
See what I
every
did there?
way.
The
Ooh,
sin?
Good,
Yeah.
good.
Anyway,
That's a thing now.
yeah. Next up is reportedly who reported on this? Wall Street
Wall Street
Journal.
Journal.
Yep, they sure did. A live-action Legend of Zelda series is apparently going to be made by Netflix.
Woo.
Woo.
I'm
Now
so
this isn't
stoked.
confirmed, and this is so random and out of left field. But reportedly by them, they're the one who broke this news. They're going to have a live-action series, and it's going to be quote Game of Thrones for a family audience.
I don't understand that because Game of Thrones is super dramatic and there's a lot of death.
Basically,
and blood.
nothing about Game of Thrones is for a family audience, so I don't know exactly what they're going to change.
I don't like it. I think they just need to leave Zelda alone.
Yeah.
No TV series.
I mean,
games are just fine.
We know that game movies. I don't think there's been a game television series, but we know that game movies are trash. And of all games to pick, why pick a game where your protagonist doesn't speak a word
Exactly.
and put it in a TV show?
Like, hey, Link, what's going on, buddy?
Yeah.
Hey, listen.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand why. And this
I
has
guess
been a
Navi
thing.
can talk for him. I mean,
I guess, yeah.
He's gonna have a translator. Like he's just giving them sign language.
Link will learn ASL. Yeah.
Yeah, what if that?
Right.
What if he just has sign language? But yeah, I think this is something that should be left alone. And there's this weird fascination with a Legend of Zelda series / movie, and I feel like it was ever since that damn IGN April Fool's video that was so good
It was incredibly
for its
good.
time.
Yeah.
And it sparked this thing, and apparently it's going to be a real thing.
Yeah.
And I think the consensus at this table is that shouldn't be a thing, and that none of us really want it.
Yeah, and Netflix refused to comment on that whole entire spiel.
They don't comment on rumor and speculation.
Right. So that basically means yes, we're doing it.
Yeah. So it could be not awful,
I don't expect it to be amazing.
but it's probably going to be awful.
Trash.
They'll show it to Nintendo, and they're gonna have really high expectations for it, and they're gonna be like, no. If there's anything wrong with it, they're just gonna be like, no.
We hope, but Nintendo also let the Mario Brothers movie and all that animated crap come out.
Well,
That was another time though.
That's
Yeah, that
exactly
was
that's
the
exactly
time.
why they're gonna be like, no.
Right.
I mean,
I really and the article said that it's that basically a dude heard from a dude, kind of behind the scenes, and that it's very, very far off. So if this thing does come to fruition, it won't be for a long ass time.
So it's just dude talk.
It's dude talk.
Dude to dude.
Dude day to day.
Dude
day.
to bro, and that's it.
That day.
That day.
Oh, that day.
Anyway, kind of closing out the news, or we'll say the eve of closing out the news, the pre-ending of the news. Square Enix, the train wreck of a company, their profits actually doubled this year, or this last year, I suppose.
Thank God.
Right? It seems like thanks to Kingdom Hearts 2.5, it did really well, and their profits kind of doubled.
That is the only thing keeping Square Enix alive is their
old shit.
games.
Yeah, how amazing is that?
Give them to me, please.
Yeah.
I mean, Final Fantasy VII, they're gonna port it. They're gonna port it to PS4, and it's the PC port, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
With trophies. I can platinum that game, and I'm going to.
But they know we wanted the remastered. I mean, they
Yeah.
had to know that.
Yeah.
Dude,
So-
I watched that live. I had that happen to me. I had that moment of, it's happening. It's actually happening. It's PlayStation experience. If it's going to happen, this is where it's going to happen.
If Square Enix wants to make some money, if they would just bundle Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 remastered, I
Oh
would
my
spend
God.
$100 on that.
Yeah.
See, yeah.
Release them each separately for $60 a freaking piece. Add to cart, add to cart, add to cart.
That's the thing. That's the thing that I feel like Square Enix can never go bankrupt because they have a trump card. If they
Yeah.
just release Final Fantasy VII, quote unquote remastered, it would just sell like hotcakes.
How many times have they, released Final Fantasy games and they've sold and sold? You can get
Yeah.
them all on Game Boy Advance, DS.
Yeah.
They've released so many. And even like Final Fantasy 1 and 2, whenever they bundled it for PS1, I went out and bought that.
Yeah.
That as soon as I saw it on the shelf, I was like, oh, perfect.
I bought 7. I've bought 7 3 times now. Steam, PSN, and then a physical copy, of course. And I'm gonna buy it again on PSN on PS4. And
Yeah, you have to.
that this is how they make their money these days, because their actual games kind of blow.
Well, the PC version looks better.
It does. The music sucks. I don't know if you've heard that music. It's like MIDI,
Mm-hmm.
And there was actually a big controversy because when it came to Steam, it had that awful music. And the outcry was so bad that they actually patched in the PlayStation version's music. And I swear to God, if that has to happen again, if that comes to PS4 and it has the MIDI music...
But you can download it to your Vita.
the
Final Fantasy 7, right?
the PS1 version.
The PS, but this PS4 re-release, the trophy.
So
ones,
far hasn't been like
they haven't said anything about Vita.
which would make that would be awesome, dude. I would
Because
Yeah,
Final
so
Fantasy
much.
7 portable.
on Vita with trophies and better graphics. Yeah,
Oh,
I would be
boy.
all over that.
Well, see, and then they also had the 10-10-2 HD remakes come out this year, and that thing sold like
that
hotcakes.
did really well. That was another thing that did well.
Yeah, and it should. I mean, don't get me wrong. I went back and played it, and I was like, man, 10 has not aged near as well as I
No,
remember it.
it
but it was
sure
still
hasn't.
fun to go back and play.
Yeah,
You know, and
I
then
I
10-2,
platinumed
those
it,
dress
and-
spheres. Oh man, so fun! And to go back
You're
and
killing me.
revisit that story.
that good story.
Yeah,
Get that smug look off your face.
I platinumed that game, and that's hours of my life that I'm never getting back. But
That's right.
it was worth it.
Yeah,
So-
I don't know why you'd platinum 10-2. It's ridiculous.
Final Fantasy 7 for PS4. That is the PC version,
Yep,
Yep.
it's pretty much it's just a PC version slapped on a PS4 with trophies.
and you're sold on it.
I'm sold
Add to
because
cart.
I'm a disgusting person.
That is exactly why they're
They
not
keep
ever
doing
going to
it.
remaster it.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
why do that when they know they're going to make money off their shitty PC version?
Well, I have a
with the
feeling,
MIDI
though-
music.
That's exactly right. People like me and fans like me are the reason that they're going to keep doing the shit they do. I would not be surprised if 8's PC version came out to PS4.
Yeah, hey,
and
it should.
people like
Why
me
not?
eat it up, and they don't need to remake games. They don't need to make new games.
Squall!
Yeah. Well, I feel like they're doing that though to keep people. Oh, hey, it's coming. No, it ain't. It's coming. No, it ain't. And then, hey,
That's the thing. I think we've been burned one too many times, and
Right.
I think it's going to come back
oh,
to
so you
bite them
mean
in
to
the
tell
ass.
me that it's not? They're not just. They're going to release it in like 2 years, and you're just not going to go buy it.
No, I'm going to buy it.
Okay.
But I think this
I rest my
this this with the recent thing, I think that's kind of diminished it a little bit. You know?
Yeah, dude.
'Cause we've been
It
burned.
was that whole reveal was handled so. I didn't watch it live, but I watched it shortly after.
Square
and
is
it's
a
like the
train
whole
wreck,
time you're
man.
just waiting for like the page to turn and it be like brand new graphics.
Exactly.
And it just never happens.
And it's like at E3, not the last year, but the year where what they showed was the gameplay, that engine trailer that had been out for like a year, and then he was like, "Please be excited for E3." It's
Yeah.
like they don't get it. They don't
No.
get it at all. They're starting to because 10 and 10.2 sold well.
Yeah.
And 2.5 sold well.
Bravely Default.
Bravely
Yeah.
Default sold well, and they came out and said, "Hey, we're gonna start making RPGs. You guys seem to like those."
Good, yeah.
No fucking shit.
Yeah, we want your turn-based
That's why
RPGs
I
that
buy-
you've given us for years
Yeah.
that we love. Yeah, 13 was great. I liked it. I think they tried, they took a big step in changing the battle system.
Man, I truly think that's one of the best battle systems in a JRPG.
I wouldn't go that far.
I
but-
said one of.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't even go that far. But here's my thing. I think it is the best battle system in a JRPG wherein you control only one party member.
Okay.
There is
I agree.
no
Sure. Yeah.
other JRPG.
I was upset in the beginning when I could only control one, and then if
Yeah.
they if
That's
that
the best way to do it.
The paradigms, it is you Libra an enemy and you have the paradigm shifts. It's perfect. They do
It's
exactly.
quick. It keeps you engaged.
Yeah.
It's fun.
And I think that's what they were afraid of, is we were getting bored with the slow pace turn-based. But I mean, I'm a big JRPG fan. I mean, if you do it right, you're never going to bore me with a turn-based ever.
Yeah, yeah. It's just there's something about them, man, that's special.
Yeah. Exactly.
But so with 2.5 selling really well, and 15's coming out soon.
Yeah, 3, Kingdom Hearts 3.
Kingdom Hearts 3, which according to Goofy, is coming out this year. We talked about that a little bit in the last
Don't be a goofy bastard about this. It's,
episode. Hey, Kingdom Hearts 3 2015 confirmed by Goofy himself. Are you calling Goofy a liar?
that's what you said last time.
Right.
Because he's not. He's Goofy.
Sorry, listeners. This is just a repeat podcast.
Yeah. But with that, this all came out of a Japanese show. I forget what it was called. It's kind of similar to TGS, I think, in the fact that like it's a Japan, Japanese like RPG focused type thing.
Right.
Because the first ever gameplay trailer for Persona 5 dropped.
Oh, boy.
And that was a big deal.
Man, it's... and I'm sorry, I'm going to steal the mic because I feel like I'm probably the
Sit
biggest
back on
Persona
this-
fan.
Kyle, you don't even like Persona.
Dude.
You're-
The
you're-
listeners
you're a
already
fake-
like, oh my
you're a
God,
fake
here's
fan.
that guy with the Persona crap again. Dear sweet Lord, my gosh. And I know it's so funny. We were talking about it last week that we were like, oh, hey, I'm gonna kind of wait. I'm so glad they haven't shown anything, and now they've shown the one thing on it. And man, I'm telling you, I've seen this trailer. I've seen enough of it. I feel like I may watch maybe the next trailer or something. But
And then after that,
I'm done. But man, that trailer was so incredible.
You're full of poop. You're gonna watch every single bit. That
Would
comes
you like
out.
to place a bet in the form of American dollars? Because I will take you up upon it.
I will. Yeah.
Okay, $20.
Settle it and smash.
20
Yeah.
bucks. I'm kind of the same way. I feel like trailers, not only in games but movies. I feel like movies, it's even worse. They
Yeah.
ruin a lot of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I just, man, again, I said this last week. I went into Persona 4 Golden with only watching a video review of it, and so I didn't know
Greg
much
Miller,
about it. Greg
T's
Miller,
fave.
GM. And then Persona 3, I went into not knowing anything. I didn't know. I just like, oh man, I loved 4, and everybody was telling me, hey, 3 is pretty close to 4, and I loved it too. And it's like, I don't want to watch these trailers and it tell me about these characters.
Yeah.
I want to discover that for myself from the ground up.
Exactly. And
You know.
with trailers, they really ruin a lot of that stuff.
Well, and this new trailer that dropped too, it did a great job to show you, hey, look, here's the central theme and some ideas for the show.
Some characters.
You know, some characters, but also without like just throwing information at us. It was very subtle. And by the time it ended, I had a lot of stuff put together about it. And at the very, very end, and that, you know, the dude, it shows him and the blue flames come up and you're like, man, what is going on? And then you hear the sound, you're like, oh, that dude just summoned his persona.
He just
Add to cart.
Add to cart. And with Persona 5, I feel like we're seeing this resurgence of JRPGs. And I think it's fucking awesome. I am so excited.
Yeah, you know, in Super Nintendo days and then PlayStation 1 days, they dominated.
The golden age.
JRPGs were great, and then this new PS3 and 360 stuff, there wasn't anything until here
Ni no
recently.
Kuni was a big one.
Lost Odyssey, I guess, was a big one for 360.
Yeah.
It wasn't too bad. These Tales games are
Yeah.
kicking butt right now. All their reviews, I was looking at some reviews, and I think the lowest one was like on a PS2. I can't remember which one it is, but it was like a 7.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
was 8 and up.
Yeah,
I mean,
was
Tales
that
is
the
knocking
Tales
it out
of the
park.
Abyss on PS2?
I don't think it was Tales of the Abyss. And I can't remember.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I think were you thinking about the sequel to Tales of Symphonia for the Wii? Because I felt like
Yes, I think
that
was
one was kind of a low
It was a
point.
Wii one.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a good point. And quoting Colin Moriarty, he kind of brought this up too recently.
I read that.
Tales of Symphonia, or not Tales of Symphonia, but the Tales series in general is one of the most consistent JRPGs I think ever.
Yeah,
But I think that the 2000s were really, really bad. Like early 2000s were a really bad time. I mean,
Yeah.
10 came out, and I liked it, but going back to it, you know, it definitely hasn't aged as well.
No.
And when you compare it to the, you know, the 90s golden age of the PS1, you know, titles and the SNES titles, they just don't compare. But I think that Ni no Kuni on PS3 was one of the first big, like, they're back. Like, a JRPG can still be good. And when I went to play that, and I went to the overworld for the first time, I was like, this is a JRPG. This is an old school JRPG in 2012. Is that when the game
Something
came?
like
Something,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
It blew my mind.
I played that game, man. It's great. You know, everything about it. I really like the art and the voice acting. It's just a carefree, feel good game.
It is.
I mean, it's not going to stress you out or be, you know, too difficult for you. But if you want to just play a good turn-based RPG, you should definitely check it out.
Mm-hmm.
And who does the art is Studio Ghibli does the art for that. Yeah, and they do great work.
And having that like mixed in with a game like that is just awesome. It's
My only complaint was Drippy.
Yeah, Mr. Drippy was very
kinda,
annoying.
Just like Teddy for me in Persona.
No,
4.
you're kidding me.
Teddy.
you
Drippy.
guys are joking, right?
I did not enjoy.
Drippy is the best. You guys hated Drippy?
I mean, he
Yes,
was okay,
because there'd
but I
be
just-
battles where he's supposed to hop in and help you, and I'm like, Drippy, please.
That never happened to me.
Somebody save me, and he would never.
Somebody help
he
me.
wouldn't.
He never helped me.
Anytime,
But
he never helped me. And he would help me when I didn't need it.
He's
and-
king of the fairies.
Oh,
He's king of the assholes with that.
He was. Oh man, Drippy's one of my. And his voice acting, like how
the
awesome.
voice acting was enjoyable. It
He's so
was, but I would just get so pissed at him because when I really needed him, he wasn't there for me.
How
Well-
awesome at the first that game was that he called like he was so shitty to Oliver. He was like, "Oh, stop being a little crybaby. Your mom died."
Oh my gosh, yeah, I was just like, wow.
This is awesome. Should be laying the real shit.
You know, again, back to what you were talking about the 2000s being a rough time. You know, and part of it sucks because I didn't go through and play these games when they launched. I was a few years late to the party, sadly. But, you know, Persona 3 came out in 06, and then FES came out in 07, which was like the director's cut of that. And we got Persona 4 in 08. And for those times, they're amazing. Now, granted, you want to play 4 Golden for the Vita, which came out in 2012.
The definitive version.
That is the definitive version. But, man, especially if you're wanting a old school turn-based RPG, especially Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden on Vita, my gosh, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
If you want something with a modern twist. But I think a lot of times, like with the early, PS1 was so successful with RPGs, and they're like, hey, here's the PS2. We've got all this extra, power at our fingertips. Let's really innovate and do something. It's like, man, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And it's crazy that it's easier to go back and play some PS1 RPGs than it is to go and play those on PS2. PS2 is a hard generation because they had grand ideas, but the hardware just, for the time, was great, but it just still wasn't quite enough to really do what it needed to do.
See, I think PS2 is easier to go back. I think the games weren't as good, but I think PS2 is easier to go back to PS1. I think PS1 is one of the hardest generations to go back to because they were just...
Well, I mean just strictly RPGs.
Right. But I think SNES is one of the easiest consoles to go back to. You play like Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, Earthbound. That pixel art style just doesn't age. It just does not age. And especially 6, I feel like. I think 6 is one of the best looking games on the SNES. It was you compare Final Fantasy 4 to Final Fantasy 6, it's just they're light years apart.
Yeah, they are.
Even though 4 is still great.
Yeah, 4 is great.
Yeah.
And 4 is my least favorite for some reason. I just could never get into 4. I gave it a try on the Game Boy Advance. I gave it a try on the Super Nintendo.
Out of all the Final Fantasy games?
Out of all the Final Fantasies.
Even 12?
12 is the only one I haven't played, really.
Don't waste your time.
12 is basically...
MMO?
It is, but I feel like with 13, that's... you went through growing pains with 12 to get to 13 in its battle system. 12 is really not fun.
I've been waiting for like an HD re-release because I feel like it'll happen because Square likes money and likes not putting effort into things. So like I'll play it, but it's definitely one I haven't gone out of my way to play. But yeah, 4, like I played even the PSP version. Have you played that version, Teef?
Of what? 4?
4?
I have not on PSP.
It's awesome, but I don't know. I
did the DS one, and it's
that's another one I played.
It's yeah.
Man, I want them to make that. Just a quick aside. Why does 4 get so much attention and love? How many times does that game need to be re-released? It's got PSP, DS, Game Boy Advance, iOS, Super Nintendo, PS1. It's like I don't know I don't know if the developers if they just really like 4 or what it is.
I don't get it. What's 6 on? Is it
6 is on Game Boy Advance, Super Nintendo, PlayStation, and iOS.
Yeah, it's still getting some love, but yeah 4 still. Yeah.
And 5 has gotten no love.
No.
Have you played 5? That's a really weird one because it wasn't released here.
I haven't played 5.
5 is awesome. 5 is a really underrated one.
All the old Final Fantasies are great. I mean 7 really mainstreamed, Final Fantasy games and turn-based, but all the way up till 10, it was kind of like okay. I like that game a lot.
10?
Yes,
yeah.
Especially I got that game brand new when it first came out, and I didn't even know what Final Fantasy games were. I'd gotten a PS2 for Christmas.
That was the first one you played?
Yes, and
that was my first one.
My issue with it, it wasn't the first one I beat. I didn't get a memory card with my PlayStation 2, and my parents bought it for me for Christmas, and they didn't know any better. And I woke up that morning and I was super excited. I put Final Fantasy X in, and
that opening
I fell
scene.
in love. And yeah, the graphics were great. I mean, it was PS2. That was the shit then,
Yeah.
Dude, on the back of the box, the box quotes were characters with voices. Like it was a huge thing.
And I played all day long. Hours and hours, and then looked down and was like, oh, I can't save. Oh no. And where I live, all we had was a video game rental store. There was nowhere where you could buy, and I went down there and they didn't have PS2 memory cards. They had PS1 memory cards for sale. And so I'd happen to be looking at the games, and they had Final Fantasy 8 for rent, and I actually was really into 10, so I was like, well, I've got to play these games now. And so I rented A and bought the PS1 memory card, and A ended up being the first one I ever played and beat. And
That's cool.
And it has a little soft spot in my heart. It's probably my favorite. I mean, just because that was the first one.
I like it. 8 I like a lot. I think it's weird. With 8, I don't like the main cast too much. But I love Laguna. I love Laguna and his his party so much. I actually like him more than Squall and like his story.
The villain wasn't very good in that one, you know.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about how villains really set the tone for a great, RPG. Ultimacia was her name, right?
Yeah, Ultima.
She was a sorceress or something.
Ultimacia, is that? I forget her name.
And she was possessing Renoa. I haven't played it in years. But
yeah, it was pretty much. She was cool, and the last boss was cool.
Cypher, I like the rivalry with him.
Yeah,
you know,
Cypher was an asshole.
Yeah, Cypher.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and like she doesn't. Ultimecia, that's what it was. Ultimecia.
Yeah.
And she doesn't. She just didn't compare to Kefka or Sephiroth.
I mean, coming off Final Fantasy 6 and 7's villains.
How do you do it?
How do you? You know, and 9 was Kuja.
Kuja's a weird.
He's very flamboyant, and I wasn't really
flamboyant.
worried about him at all because I was like, this guy.
9's a weird one. 9 people either like love and just think it's like their fave.
Vivi is
dude.
Yeah, I love him.
Vivi has one of the best stories and character development of any Final Fantasy character.
Well, even like Seymour was pretty effeminate. Even like he was.
Dude, Seymour's one of the like as far as villains go, one of the easiest to hate, and that's your job
he's
as a villain.
Piece of shit.
He
sure.
is.
Yeah.
You know, that's an interesting trend in Final Fantasy games, especially from 7 onward, is that the villains seem to be very. They weren't really like, I'm gonna beat you up, like kind of thing. They were really sleek, you know, and very. I'm more of a lover, not a fighter kind of type or something.
Yeah, it's almost like 7 was. Well, it was so great, but yet it marked the beginning of the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but with like Seymour and Sephiroth and Kefka, I mean, those guys are badasses.
Right.
I mean, their boss fights are very difficult.
And they proved it in actions throughout the story where you're like, oh man, this dude means business.
Yeah, every time you came across them, you're like, oh fuck,
what's going to happen?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to get my butt kicked. You know, what do I got to do to? It was a struggle to beat those bosses, and I mean that what makes you fall in love with them sometimes is because I mean these are ultimate badasses, and then when you beat them, it's such a reward.
It is.
Yeah.
And like with JRPGs, I feel like not only is the villain important, but the villain's presence in the game is really important.
Yeah, not to steal the mic here a little bit, but on those games, man, they introduce everything in a game. With a JRPG, you get every aspect from a game. You get action and gameplay. You get great voice acting. You get a great story. You know, you get great graphics. Those games give you the full gaming experience other than just, oh, this shooter is smooth and it has great graphics, but the story sucks, you know, or the voice acting is not very good, very dude bro-y. You know, and that's what's great about JRPGs and the characters too. I mean, since there's a party of characters, you always have somebody that you relate to and that you really like, especially in the Persona series.
Yeah.
I mean, they do such good character design and their personalities. You know, there's always a character in there that you can kind of, you know, vision yourself as, and that helps you really relate and connect to those characters, and it makes it very personal in Persona games for sure.
Yeah, and that's where the character development comes in. Is like the character development, especially that's one thing that I really enjoyed about 4 compared to 3 is that in 4, every one of your party members you will eventually have some form of a social link with, where in 3 that's not necessarily the case, but you get to see that character development for every single person that you can play as throughout the game, and it's so neat to see that grow. And that's the beautiful part about JRPGs, and the reason why you get these great characters and great stories is that it's not like a shooter where it's like, oh, it's an 8-hour campaign. It's also one of those things that you get you have all these hours of gameplay for them to take the time to develop those stories. It's not like, oh, hey, we got to deliver this to you, you know, in 8 hours of gameplay. And that's what has me so excited about Persona 5 and that trailer that dropped is like, man, you could tell already that these people have a very close relationship, that they've got some stuff going on. They've already showed kind of the Koromaru / Teddy, you know, mascot type character, this cat. You know, it looks awesome. The tone of the game sounds great. I mean, it kicks in with that, you know, kind of loungy, hip, you know, tune that pops in there, and you're just like, man, it's so fantastic that they're getting the same director, character designer, and composer back. Those you have to have that.
I think it's. Go ahead, JC. I think it's funny that. Did you hear the quote about how the director was like unsure of whether people would like the trailer? Do you hear about that?
Yeah, I did.
It's
read
like
that.
they've been working on this game for so long, and they've been like in their own heads, I guess, that they're like, oh, I hope they'll like it, and they just don't understand how much, like, just how good it was and how
That
much
modesty
it
is
freaked
what
people
makes
out.
it
Yeah,
so
that's
awesome.
pretty cool. It's
Yeah.
pretty humble of them to say. Even
Yeah.
like, I think for me, the most exciting thing for me to take away from that trailer. I mean, obviously the animation's great, the music's awesome, of course, but just that little snippet of gameplay where your protagonist is jumping from chandeliers. I was like, oh wow, they're really opening up these dungeons just a little bit. I mean, it didn't have to be this huge deal, but
Like a reinvention of the wheel
even
or
that,
anything.
like Kyle even touched on it. You know, it's not just a maze anymore. For as great as Golden is, you know, the mazes were just kind of they kind of drug on.
Right.
Luckily, the dungeons weren't super huge.
Well,
so that helped.
The other thing
but-
was too is every dungeon is different, and it's presented in a way that you are interested and you do want to see every inch of this thing. Where, like you said, there's obviously going to be multi levels in the dungeons now, which is going to be really neat. And you have that one part where he like goes into cover and like zips to the other side and zips back. And you're like, man,
Like, what even is that?
Yeah, why are you even having to do that?
And that-
You know, but that looks so good.
Well, even in those games, you know, they're a real grind, and
Yeah.
and being in those dungeons, yeah, it's a little dull at times, but still, for how great it is, and it's still enjoyable. For them to even open up even more, it's gonna make the grind even better.
Yeah,
So to kind of break that down, that trailer a little bit, something that I just noticed specifically, you brought up the fact that the masks seem to be the invokers, which I think is a super interesting and awesome thing.
yeah, it fits that motif of a persona because it's a mask
Yeah.
of yourself, and it's like, man, that being the evoker is insanely smart.
I have a few like questions of like your guys' opinions and theories on it. We saw some of the characters like hanging out in a bar, or a bar or a restaurant or something, super Catherine style. We never saw like an avatar with text. We never saw.
Right.
Do you guys think that they're gonna ditch that? Because we saw those like cuts of the characters, in between. Do you think they're gonna ditch that and it's gonna be like fully voiced? And
I think so.
you think so? You think that they're gonna ditch the avatar thing?
Yeah, I think you might have the option to turn on like subtitles.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna.
But
yeah.
I think that was there before to keep you engaged because they weren't able to fully voice act.
Yeah.
Well, it's still gonna give you options. I'm assuming on what you can say as your main character.
Has to.
It has to. Those games are too set on doing that.
Yeah, and that goes into my other thing. Do you think that the protagonist is going to be a silent one in this one?
I don't know. That is a loaded question. And it depends on, it seemed like in the trailer, and I did look at the translation that they actually had a name there at one point, but then the rest of it did say main character or protagonist or something like that. So he might be, nameless.
Yeah, for as much as P Studio likes to keep recurring things in their games, and not even just in story, but the protagonists have always been silent. I feel like he still should be.
Yeah, I think it would be
I'll be
weird.
fine either way.
Yeah,
I would be too, but I feel like it would be weird to.
I think
'cause
that,
that's
like
such
you
a-
said, how humble they are, and they're so worried that we weren't going to like it. I don't think they're going to change too much on that.
For me, and granted, I've only played Persona 3 and very little of 4, but for me, the silent protagonist, it really helps you feel like that person.
Yeah.
Like when I was playing
Yeah,
3,
definitely.
I did see the protagonist as not me, but at the same time, sometimes I felt like he was because
Right.
I was choosing what he said. He was silent for the most part. I felt like it was all happening to me. And so I feel like if they had him fully voiced, that would kind of take away from that. I think that's a really big part of that experience with Persona.
Yeah, what if they fail with or take a misstep with the voice acting and people end up hating the protagonist if he's fully voiced, then you're kind of like, oh no.
That's another thing. I'm really interested to see what the cast is going to be like.
Yeah, it's like, who can they cast now? I mean, they pulled out all the stops for especially Persona 4's voice cast.
I'm not worried.
Oh, no, I'm not
I'm
either.
not worried either.
No,
I'm
not at all.
interested.
Yeah,
I'm really
very
interested.
interested.
Persona's revived JRPGs.
Yeah.
I mean, especially putting 4 on Golden, which those are PS2 titles, and because of you, Kyle, I'd seen those games, but I never had really gotten into them because I was such a Square Enix or Square
Right.
Soft, kind of guy, and you love that game so much, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll check it out. You had to buy me the game in order for me to play it, and thank goodness that you did, because I mean it's going to be one of my favorite games.
Here's what's crazy: Persona 4 Golden. Everybody at this table, except for Virgil, I bought that game for. And here's the crazy part: is the other person at this table, Grace, bought Virgil his copy of Persona 4 Gold.
Yep.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I got Story a copy as well.
Did you get Kelly one?
I'm pretty sure I got Kelly one as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a whole shipment of them in one day.
I'm
You're like, here you go,
I'm
handing
like
them out
the
like
Jesus
candy.
of Persona. I'm like, come
Have
to
you heard
me, my children.
Have you heard the good news?
Right, dude. And it was though. It was a eye-opening experience. You have to realize, I didn't grow up playing JRPGs, and I'm actually the opposite in Teef in the fact that 8 was the first Final Fantasy I played, but 10 was the first one I beat. And I did not beat. I played Final Fantasy 8 back in probably 2001, 2002 on my PS1 because I didn't own a PS2. And the first one I beat was Final Fantasy 10 in like 2006 or 7.
I think for me, 10 was the first one I played, and 6 was the first one I beat, or vice versa. I'm not sure which one. It's hard to remember. But dude, I think Persona is the Final Fantasy of
today.
This
They're taking over unless Square Enix does something big. I'm really worried about Square Enix, except for maybe their remasters or their
Bravely
ports.
Default or Bravely Second. Yeah,
and it's 3DS.
Bravely Default was another good sign of just like this resurgence.
Yeah, Bravely Second is what it's going to be. The new one, the second one.
Yeah. But with crap, I lost my train of thought. You go ahead, Kyle.
No worries, man. I just, again, like we were talking about, the and the more I think about it, I really do feel like the protagonist in 5 will be silent. I really do. But you can tell, like, man, there's all those things. It feels like another Persona game, but yet it feels so fresh and so different. The guys are obviously like a burglar type, thing, and they're
some
wearing
kind of vigilantes
type thing. But then again, it's like, how does this work? You have the TV world in 4, you have Tartarus and the Dark Hour in 3. What's it gonna be in 5?
They're not gonna get away from shadows at all.
No, it'll be the same thing.
They'll come up with something that'll fit just right in. This is also going to be on PlayStation 3,
right?
Correct.
It actually was originally going to be just on PS3, and then in that last trailer back in like September-ish, they were like, "Oh,
also on PS4." And I think it would be a genius. And granted, this would not be good for consumers, but I think it would have been a genius move to make it PS4 exclusive, because PS4 is doing awful in Japan, and that is a game that would absolutely move systems. That game would move systems in Japan like no.
I think
no other game.
I think that's a big. That's part of the reason why it's coming to PS4 is to try and help.
Just help, yeah.
It'd
be cool if they give some kind of incentive.
JRPGs severely.
Yeah, and I think Level 5 is working on a JRPG for PS4.
And Vita has a crazy lineup of just JRPGs lined up, and then for how popular they are in Japan, that's probably why they're pushing those so hard too.
And the Vita's selling fairly well in Japan. In fact, the PSP is still selling in Japan. But the thing is, like we've made it obvious, 2 of the best turn-based JRPGs you can play. You can both play the definitive versions of those games only on PlayStation Vita. You play the PSP version of Persona 3, and you can I guess you could play it on PSP as well. Yeah. Excuse me there. But Persona 4 Golden, you can only play on Vita. And like Virgil was doing,
play it on your Vita TV.
You can play it on your PlayStation,
your PlayStation,
your PS TV, TM. But
selling great.
You're
by the
essentially using it as a PS2. It's so brilliant, and I love it. And I have beat Persona 4 Golden 4 or 5 times, I think. And I am about to play through it again just because I have a Vita TV. And it's been about a year since I've been through it. It's like I cannot wait, especially because all my other playthroughs outside of my first one, I fast forward through the cutscenes. And now I'm far enough away from it. We're like, man, I'm going to look for every little single detail of that game. I love it so much.
We were talking about great villains, and in Persona 4 Golden, Persona 4, you don't know who the villain is, and I think that's really what keeps you, really enticed in who it is, because it's a mystery. It's a murder mystery.
And same way with 3.
And then it's like, who is it? And it keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time.
It's a roller coaster ride for sure. I mean, there's multiple times where you're like, oh, I got it. It's figured out, and then it's like, no, you don't.
Yeah, they keep kind of dragging you along there for a little while, and then they'll slap you in the face and be like, "Look, this is it really turns. There's a big turn of events, and it really surprises you, and you're like, oh man." And at one point, you're kind of like, "Man, this is about to be over with," and it's kind of sad. But then Persona's great about, nope, you're not done.
Yeah.
They keep you going, and still, the villain, to no spoilers, is a great villain in that game too. Once you find out.
Oh my gosh, dude!
And
cold chills right now just talking about it.
See, what's so special about Persona, in my opinion, is I feel like it doesn't follow that cliche need for a villain.
Right.
Like, the cliche, the standard JRPG of the 90s and early 2000s, and in the early 90s. You needed that villain, and you needed him he or her established like right away. And with Persona, you don't even really need that.
Right.
Persona is really special in how its gameplay works and how it focuses on the social links and this social aspect to it.
Well, and you usually have a central like crisis.
Yeah.
That's the reason why you come together, and that crisis itself is kind of the core of this quote villain.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's usually in those older games, it's a relationship usually between the main player and the villain. And in Persona, it's more about the relationship between you and your party members.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good change of pace, and it makes you to where you really care about the players in those games.
Oh, dude, there's been times where like a party member will go down in a battle, and I'm like, man, it's almost like the difference between playing with you guys online and playing with somebody else online. It's like, man, when you guys get down, I want to get you guys revived because I care about you. It's the same way with that. It's like you care about those party members, and man, they get taken out, and you're just like, oh man, I've got to get them up.
And it would make me legitimately sad at times whenever like a character would ask you to hang out, and you're like, oh, I can't. I got plans with someone else, and they'd be like, oh, they seem disappointed, and you're just like, this is an artificial intelligent player, and it's still making me upset. That's how those games capture you, though.
That brings us back to Square, and with 15 coming out, I think 15 is really going to be like a really important point for Square to show whether or not they are going to like rise back up or fall. Like if 15 is not good, I feel like that's the nail in the coffin for Square as far as relevancy in JRPGs go.
I don't know if it'll be the nail in the coffin for Square, but maybe for Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
I agree completely with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're just running out of ideas on what to do with that series.
I mean, how
many are there? Yeah. How many Final Fantasy? There's tons.
There are 15 final ones.
Right, and then you have 10-2, and then 13-2, and Lightning Returns. So that's 18.
Tactics Advance.
Yeah, and then all those other great, Crystal Chronicles.
Oh, dude, Crystal Chronicles was that game was awful. The game was some hot garbage. I remember buying that, being like, "Dude, Final Fantasy for my GameCube, how rad!" And
you had to have a player carry the chalice, right?
Dude, it was so bad.
Or could you have like the little Moogle do it for you?
Yeah, it was built around. It was a way for Nintendo to sell more Game Boy Advances and to sell their stupid Game Boy Advance to GameCube adapters.
That game. It
was Four Swords Adventures and Final Fantasy.
It was so bad. But yeah, I think that if 15 does not impress, that, I don't know what Square could do to become relevant again in the JRPG. I mean, Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to be big, but as far in like the traditional kind of type of JRPG realm, I don't know what they could do to be relevant.
Bravely Default, I guess,
is
what they're going to have to just kind of start pushing and going with.
Yeah. I agree with Teef, though. I think it's make or break time for Final Fantasy. But the flip side of that is as much as I really enjoyed 13, you can't get any worse than 13-2 and Lightning Returns.
Yeah, I agree. Lightning's Return.
Don't give them any ideas. They could.
I played 13. I enjoyed that game. There was some things I didn't like about it, but I won't go into the whole spiel of 13. But 13-2, was okay. It was a mess.
Its gameplay was good, but its storyline was, to quote Virgil, hot garbage.
Well, like we discussed earlier about 13, Square being kind of bold and changing the battle system, and it ended up working pretty well.
Yeah.
And they stuck with that, which was good. But Lightning's Return, I played a little bit of it.
Yeah, I didn't even bother.
You only play as Lightning.
Yeah,
and
it's like a lot more action-based.
It's like the same battle system. She just kind of has... It's almost a dress sphere kind of thing. You can change like her class in the middle of battle. And you're on a time limit. It's very like,
like
a
Majora's
Zelda
Mask.
Majora's Mask. And first when I saw that, there was a side quest I came across, and I couldn't figure it out. And so I pulled it up to see, where do I go? What do I need to do? And I had already seen that I'd missed like 2 or 3 other side quests because I didn't go to a specific place at a specific time on a specific day. And I missed like some really good armor or something because of it. And it doesn't
That's the
give you any
worst.
direction on, hey, you need to go check this out and, see if you want to do this side quest. And it's a JRPG. It's a Final Fantasy game. I don't want to be rushed.
No, you
I
shouldn't
want
have
to
to.
explore and grind and level up and go searching for armor and weapons and stuff. But it's too rushed for sure.
Yeah, very much so. And I think, again, I went in, I bought 13.2 at launch. That is another game that I actually still own my launch copy of, which is ridiculous.
That's
'cause I did not
$60
enjoy it.
though. $60 well spent.
That the ending of that game is the most disappointed I've been in a game that I've actually played and beat. Like, I feel like at the end of the game, a representative of Square came out of the TV, spit in my face, and punched me in the nuts.
Yeah.
It was
On
that bad.
13.2?
On 13.2.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It was the most insulting ending to a game I've ever played. Ever. Worse than Mario 2, oh, it was all a dream.
Square is great.
Yeah. In fact,
They-
Virgil, you remember when you came into my
I
store
remember,
and I
yeah.
just beat it, and I was like, dude,
You have to see
look
how
at
awful
this
this is.
complete trash.
And I was like, man, I'm never going to play this. And I started it, and I feel like any JRPG that has, and this is just a personal preference, that has this whole like controlling monsters thing, aside from Pokemon, doesn't do it for me. I need to have
you
this
like Ni no
connection
Kuni.
to my party. I need to feel connected to these people. And like, what is it? I think Dragon Warrior, is that the one that kind of has some of that too? Or
Dragon Quest has that Ni no Kuni.
yeah, Ni no
You know,
Kuni too.
But they did that really well.
It was
did.
handled extremely well.
The fact that you controlled your parties who controlled an enemy or a monster really helped.
Yeah, it still lets you relate to the characters still.
Right. You get the best of both worlds with that scenario. But I do agree, I don't want Final Fantasy / Pokemon. I don't want that crossover.
No.
That's just not a thing. Even like, as much as I love Kingdom Hearts, Dream Drop Distance, really
Kinda had
enjoyed
that,
it.
I heard.
But it kind of had that. But then again, it wasn't like crucial to the gameplay either. It was kind of like if you had better, Dream Eaters with you, it definitely made the game a little bit easier. But it wasn't like hey, you got to do this.
So what do you think Square needs to do? I think, because looking at 15's kind of gameplay, the battle system's not turn-based. It doesn't
Doesn't look like.
And I think they need to go back to that.
I think so too, and I think they'll do that with Bravely Second and with the Bravely series. I think that's where they'll keep their core traditional JRPG gameplay, and depending on how good 15 does, and I think 15 is going to be great. I think it will be good. It has a lot of Kingdom Hearts aspects into it, and people eat that shit up.
Well, and
for a
especially
good
with
reason.
it being action like that and not turn-based, that'll make it much more accessible and make it more likely to be a commercial success.
And I feel as the Final Fantasy series gets older, they're really getting to sci-fi rather than a fantasy type. And that's what I really like about the older games. It's more of a fantasy than it is, the sci-fi type.
I mean, it's been since 9 since we've had that, and that was a big deal about 9. Everyone loved the fact that 9 went back to that high fantasy type thing. But yeah, we haven't had a real quote unquote fantasy type Final Fantasy in 15 years or so.
Don't you think Final Fantasy as a whole has? It seems like there's a distinct division that starts at 6 going into 7, and you think it caters more. Final Fantasy kind of caters to Western audiences more and more with each new release. I mean, they made an MMO version, in 12, and then 10 was super linear and easy, which is something that's Japan's not known for in their games. And then 13 again was a very linear game.
Oh, the first half for sure.
Yeah, the game does open up,
And
but
that end game for 13 is great.
it is.
And
I haven't watched any trailers on 15, but I feel like I'd be
15.
fine.
You haven't whoa. Not to interrupt. Back it up. You haven't seen any trailers on 15?
Mm-mm.
God,
No.
dude, you have to.
Yeah, I'll have to check them out.
It looks
I've only
crazy.
seen stills. That's all I've seen. Oh my God. I would be fine.
The scope.
The scope, the scope of that game, dude, is like,
Yeah.
it looks really awesome.
Cool. maybe a more refined paradigm system.
That'd be rad.
Is what
And that's why it looks like it looks like it borrows a lot from Kingdom Hearts, especially in the fact that I remember when Versus 13, was announced and they showed some gameplay, you had the same attack item, yada yada, on the side as Kingdom Hearts, and it looks like you control Noctis, the main protagonist, and then the other two are computer,
like
AI
Donald
characters.
and Goofy.
Exactly, just like Donald and Goofy.
See, that makes me kind of scared because that reminds
you're
me of
not-
12. It reminds me of that Gambit system
Yeah.
where, and I don't know, maybe the AI was just terrible, or I was just terrible at
Yeah.
telling them their general commands of what I wanted them to do. I don't know, but it was
Yeah.
not fun.
15 is really deviating, and like I said, I think it'll be make or break for Square, and as far as that series, and I kind of brought this up with you, I think it was, that I'm kind of concerned at how long this game's been in development.
Yeah, it's been in development for a while, and
2006 is when that thing was announced.
Well,
I was 12. I was 12 years old when Versus
9
13
years ago, yeah.
was announced.
yeah, it's ridiculous. Well, and I do think though, if you looked at 13, as a whole, you would look at that and think, oh, well, that's not turn-based, it's action-based, because the characters are moving around making attacks. So maybe it's something like that, and they just haven't shown those menus. But
Well, see, 13 I felt like was really not like full turn-based like 10, but I think that's the one thing 13 did right, is it brought back the ATB
Yeah.
bar in that system. So, it was kind of turn-based in that
right,
aspect.
and it doesn't look like that's going to happen in 15, but maybe it's a little
Right.
bit of both.
It looks like
I doubt it. But
yeah,
it'd be
it
cool.
looks like it's just straight up. It looks like Kingdom Hearts except open world.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope so. I think that 13, it was almost too late. I think whenever they opened up at the end,
Yeah, it
I
was.
wish it was a lot
I completely
earlier.
agree. I think it was too late.
When they hit 10 with the kind of linear, it worked okay,
Yeah.
but definitely
That's what's weird about 10. It never felt
in a
linear, but it
JRPG,
is.
and especially a Final Fantasy game, you have to have the open world exploration. I mean,
Well-
that's what really captures people in those games a lot of times.
I wish that they would have just made that exclusively for PS3. The hardware limitations of the 360 held that game back, because they even said that the first part of that game is extremely linear because they didn't want the player switching discs all the time.
Right,
And that sucks.
15, yeah, I'm worried about that too. Hopefully, it is open world. I think that'll really save Square.
I mean, judging by the trailers, it certainly looks like it. Like it looks.
That scope, that scope looks.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It looks beautiful for sure. Which I mean, any nowadays on new gen, if it doesn't look beautiful, yeah, you're screwing up big
Yeah.
time.
Well, and in this day and age too, though, is here's what I think: if 15 does not work out, it's reboot time. Reboot.
Yeah.
Hit it, make it happen. Because, and I'm not saying break the numbering. I'm saying Final Fantasy 16, go right back to the very beginning. Make it the medieval high fantasy type, and do it strictly turn-based battles.
Yeah, I feel like that's what they explore with the like 14, I believe, like the MMO
Right.
versions. They really explore the more of the fantasy element. And
But that game's credibility is in. It's not even in the toilet. It's down in the sewer lines.
No, I disagree. That game, I actually played that game with Realm Reborn. That game is awesome, and it actually has a pretty good community around it now.
No. I'm not saying the MMO's great. I'm not saying anything bad about that. I'm just saying if 15 doesn't perform, I'm just saying
Oh, gotcha.
when you hear Final Fantasy, these modern Final Fantasies.
Oh yeah. I thought you meant like 14.
No.
specifically.
Now it was initially.
Yeah, oh,
But
yeah,
after
initially it
Realm
was
Reborn
garbage.
hit, that fixed a ton of problems. No, it's great.
Yeah, it's weird when you think about Final Fantasy. You think about Final Fantasy in the 90s, you hear that name, you think quality.
Oh.
And these days, you think the opposite.
Especially like you said, if 15 doesn't go over well, that's probably something they need to really start putting their time into. Probably just like a 14.
Well, and I think it's time for a whole new team.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to get those people that are. And I'm not saying Tetsuya Nomura, he's great, but I
And see, this is the first time he's really, I mean, he did some character designs, but as far as like, the whole, I kind of having the reins on the title.
This is his first.
Yeah.
And that's outside of Kingdom
that's
Hearts.
something
This
that-
is his first.
Yeah, and that's something that kind of bothers me about 15 is, in my mind, it's not really 15. It's
13.
versus 13, and it took so long, let's just call it 15, So I still see it as like a side game to 13, and I really want to know what the hell happened with that game and what exactly made this game take this long. But
Yeah,
you guys
it's a
brought
strange
up
story.
You guys brought up the reboot. That you think about reboots all the time these days with Tomb Raider and all these other games. A reboot of Final Fantasy has never even crossed my mind. And that's a crazy idea, but it does feel like time. And I think it is time, actually, to just, if 15 bombs, the next one.
Reboot or remasters.
I think if 15 bombs, the next one, Final Fantasy. Not any number, Final Fantasy. And it's a return to the classic, but kind of modernized at the same time.
Yeah, and like Devil May Cry, DMC, I think
that game was awesome.
It's a great game, and they rebooted it very, very well.
Well,
I was really impressed.
He mentioned Tomb Raider. Man, that's one of the best reboots of anything I've played because Tomb Raider was a joke. After PS1 days, I mean, you had a couple on
and
PS2.
Square did that.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. I mean, now they published it, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and then Eidos or however the piss you say it, they developed it. I guess Crystal Dynamics. Man, they did just a fantastic job. It's like you didn't have like the big titty Laura running around, I mean, she was curvy, she had some stuff going on, but it wasn't all about that. It was her emotional journey. It's like that girl got her ass whipped throughout that entire game, like worse than Nathan Drake.
It's Uncharted, yeah.
Yeah, and that's not
a bad thing.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing at all. It's like Uncharted took Tomb Raider, and it made Tomb Raider irrelevant, like that.
Now they are bringing Type 0.
Yes.
To I don't know much about it. It was a Japanese PSP game, correct?
Yeah.
Is it
also
is
in the
it
13
good?
universe? It's supposed to be, and apparently, it's supposed to be one of the. Because as much as I love Final Fantasy, I will never deny that the games are very melodramatic in a lot of ways and very cliched. And I think it's a part of the charm to the games, but I would never deny that they are that. Type 0 is apparently super, super mature for a Final Fantasy game. And apparently he draws a lot of inspiration from 6, which makes me obviously very happy. I worry about the fact that this is a PSP game being remastered. And it's not being remade, it's being remastered, which means upscaled with some new textures. I really wonder how it's going to look on PS4.
Well, like you said, you're buying a $60 demo.
Yeah.
You're getting it for that 15 demo.
Yeah, and I am, but I'm also looking forward to Type 0 because it is a game I've always wanted to play. And they
It's
actually
been highly praised.
Yeah, but the demo is definitely a big part of it. For crazy fans who just need to play the demo, and that's genius on Square's part to just put that in there because I guarantee you that boosts the sales of that game.
Not only that, think back in the day that used to be a thing. You used to get those demo discs in with that, and I get it. Yeah, you can, but I think they're starting to realize that online demos are great or whatever, but not a lot of people download them now. You know what I mean? You got YouTube, you got all that crap. But with 15...
And you can use them as sale incentives.
Exactly. And the thing is, there's a lot of confusion around 15 right now. There's not... Like with us here sitting talking about, we've seen everything there is to see on it so far, and yet we're still talking about how do you think the battle system is on it.
Yeah.
How's
There's
it
a lot of
playing?
uncertainty around it.
Yeah, so I
sure.
think getting a gameplay demo out, clearly that game's pretty far on in development. I don't think we'll see it this year, maybe next year.
I mean, you heard that's the thing. You heard the quote last year of like they said that the game was 52% done.
Oh, 52.
52%.
2%, man.
Last year being the what?
7th or 8th year.
7th or 8th year in development. 52%. What the hell happened with this game? Like I really want to know.
Money.
I guess.
Yeah.
I just.
But that's the thing is, why in the world, if it looks so good, why in God's name did they spend the time, effort, and yen, I should say, not American dollars, yen, on 13.2 and Lightning Returns?
I don't.
Good God,
I
why?
assume that's a different team, and I think maybe another part of it is the conversion of PS3 to PS4
Is it
when
just
they
a
realized.
space filler to keep you?
Yeah.
guess,
I think I just
captured
keeping
to-
brand recognition up. I really do. I think those games...
And it
there's
really
no
backfired
way.
because those games were trash and kind of tarnished the name.
Yeah, it did.
Even
Do
more.
a lot of people even like Lightning?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, she was okay. I
I liked her.
she
She
just
didn't
makes-
blow my mind.
Like I said, she
Yeah.
was like Cloud and Squall for me. It's like I've seen it. I've seen it before.
Right. It wasn't...
It's another weather named character who is cold and cool and has a gun blade.
It won't open up to anybody.
Yeah.
until the very end.
She even had a gun blade. I mean, like, come on.
Yeah, it was kind of cool the way that she used it. And stuff, but
It was.
By far, the character that stole that show was Hope.
I think so too. I mean, well,
Not initially. He sucked initially. But
Also,
his
there's
character
snow.
development.
And Chocobo and Saz's hair.
Oh,
yeah.
That dude was so adorable. Saz, not the Chocobo.
Saz was also kind of adorable in his own special way.
I'll never forget. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
Whenever Saz's kid Dodge was coming up and embracing him, and it's like, dude, I remember I was laid up in my bed playing it, and the tears started rolling.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you
bro.
mean at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I was crying like a big damn baby. Dude, and not only that, when Dodge became a crystal, I lost it too. I cried right there, man. That's
a very emotional moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the most like heartbreaking moments, and that was when I started realizing how much I enjoyed that game. That game pulled at your heartstrings.
What are you know what, to end out the show tonight? What are some moments like that made you tear up or cry in games?
I got a great one, and internet, you're gonna love this. And this one's pretty embarrassing.
I think I know this one.
Yeah,
Do I?
Super Paper Mario.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I don't know if I was just extremely distraught or what, but have you guys played it? Or y'all? I
okay haven't, and I'm probably not going to because it's not like the others, right?
Right. It's like a side scroller that goes into 3D. The whole thing is you have your character. It's like following you around, giving you navigation, and she's like helping you. I cannot remember her name, but she's just like a little butterfly looking thing, and it's all cool.
Totally not Navi.
Yeah, but it's Navi-ish. Doesn't remember who she is, and then your Count Chocula-esque villain. I don't remember his name either. Black or something like that. Am I right?
Blah.
Or am I getting that mixed up with the Mario and Luigi games?
I think that's right.
Okay, Count Blackula. I don't know.
Count Blackula.
I'll have to wiki it. But anyways, dude, this whole time, he's like super upset and super heartbroken and blah, blah, blah. And then you come to find out at the end that like the person that's been following you, helping you on his quest was the villain's like true love. And something happened. She died or she got transformed or whatever. And dude, the game closes out with like, it's just like this grassy hill and it's their silhouette sitting there and they're like happy together. And it was really touching. I wouldn't necessarily say like I like cried, but it kind of makes you tear up. You know what I mean?
Did you tear up or
like
did you cry?
One of those things that I thought I got a little watery
Right.
on the deal. But I as far as like actually straight up lost it and cried, dude, Heavy Rain did that for me, man. That game redefined me. Like, I'll never forget. I just got through beating that game, and we took my nephew, who at the time was like 2, maybe 3. He was walking.
What's his name? Jason?
No, it was. I did not press X to Jason.
Jason!
But we went to a mall, and it was super crowded.
Did he have a red balloon?
And no, he did
red?
not. It was a red balloon.
It was red.
But, dude, I'm telling you, I gripped that kid's hand so hard. Like, that game, like, changed me as a person just to the sheer fact that, like, man, it's amazing how quick crack can happen and you can lose a kid.
And then you just got some saw shit going on and you have to cut off
Right.
your fingers.
Yeah, I'm not trying to mess around with none of that crap. That's really the main thing. I wasn't worried about losing the kid. I just didn't want to go through
Just
those
want to
trials.
lose your fingers, yeah.
Yeah, that was the stuff that I just really, ain't nobody got
gotcha.
time for that.
Yeah. For me, man, my biggest one, both of them are Final Fantasy. The ending to 10, when Yuna says "I love you," and that got me. Which, by the way, I don't know. I think I told you about this. Originally, she does not say that. In the Japanese, she just says "arigato." She just says "thank you." But here in the West, we are just so obsessed with love and romance that we made her say "I love you," and I like that more because
It fits.
I like the romance of it. But as far as making me flat out bawl, I mean like close to bawling, and this is spoilers for Final Fantasy VIII. Are you guys?
I'm groovy.
Cool. Is the end of the game when Laguna's walking up to Rain's grave, and music's playing, and do you know what Distant Worlds is? The Final Fantasy Orchestra concert.
Yes. Yep.
I've gone to 3 of those, and I went to one where they showed that scene on the screen and were playing the orchestra version of that song, and I just lost it right next to my girlfriend. I was like, it just hit me, and I just love Laguna so much, and I love that story, and just the flashback of him like holding up the ring and everything. It gets me every time, and that song to this day, if I just hear that song, it gets me going. In fact, I'm a little teared up right now just talking about it.
What about you, JC? Let's hear about your man tears.
I honestly can't think of it of
Mortal Kombat.
any time. I think
Sub-Zero.
First time you saw Sub-Zero.
I can't think of anything in game that really actually literally made me tear up or cry or not. But hype around pre-release trailers and things. I think there's been a few of those that I got kind of choked up on.
Pre-release
Just like
trailers made you
excitement tears.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I can't think of.
Dude, on that note, Kingdom Hearts 3. That
Yeah.
release trailer, I lost my
yeah.
shit and I teared up. Because I told myself it was never going to happen. So I can relate to that for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, the beginning of Last of Us, but it felt. It felt like it really wanted to make me cry. And it just didn't.
See, I did. That was one I did not mention. I totally cried. Yeah.
Final Fantasy X, it's got some moments in it as well that I was, kind of felt like I, wanted to.
You could feel it pulling on the heartstrings.
I think when Yuna is sending off all of those villagers off to the far plane.
Dude, that first time she does the sending.
Yeah, I just got cold
Yeah,
chills
me
about
too.
it.
That's one of the most
haunting.
beautiful scenes in that game.
It was so morbid, if you really think about it.
It was.
But at the same time, it's like you
It
have
was
to do
beautiful,
this
too.
ugly job. This is awful.
I love Yuna as a character.
I just got chilled again.
Yeah, that just set that woman up, like how strong that woman is.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Right.
Teef?
Yeah, Final Fantasy X definitely had Auron.
Golly.
that-
yeah.
Auron's awesome, dude.
Yeah, he is the character in that game. I really think he's great. Unit 2, that one, man, one of them that really got me too was Shadow of Colossus, Wanderer's Horse. And spoiler alert, by the way, it's a PS2 game, so hopefully, but it is remastered on PS3. But his horse. You're going to the last boss in that game, and there's a bridge, and it starts to crumble underneath you, and his horse falls. Yeah, and
Like Atreyu in Neverending Story.
It
Oh, man.
it's bad, dude. Because you call your horse. His name is I believe it's Agro, and him screaming that horse's name as he falls, and he's like just watching him die right in front, and he's been there this whole crazy
Like the
dark
only thing you
dark
got that whole
journey,
time.
And so that was a big one.
The game is so awesome. Like, 'cause that game is
Yeah.
so empty.
Yes,
You know?
Kingdom Hearts. When Sora, anytime I even see that little scene where Sora and Kairi
Kairi
are
from the
reaching for
first
each
one?
other is pretty.
Yeah.
On the sand. Yeah.
And then, man, I'm sorry, I have a couple
Right?
more.
No, far away.
Ares in Final Fantasy VII. That's a pretty big one too.
That was one for me that it was such a big thing, such a cliched, thing in the not cliched, but like that's not the right word. But such a well-known thing that I had that spoiled for me before I.
Well,
played
main
it.
characters dying is especially
It's common now.
Yeah, it is. And then she's a big.
It was out of
part
nowhere.
that game,
Yeah.
and it was out of nowhere. You didn't expect it,
Yeah.
I
I was especially pissed when I trained her and everything, like leveled her up and then just well.
Yeah, and then the last one I would probably say Metal Gear Solid 4.
Now, please don't. I
okay.
haven't beat it. I do plan on it.
Man, it's not nothing. It's not really a spoiler alert, but like, that's one of my favorite game series, and just being with Snake through all that he goes through, and then he's old in 4, and he's this super badass. But in 4, he's like, there's times where you just be like trying to roll and be like, and he grabs his back because he just physically can't do it anymore. And that whole game, it's kind of like an Uncharted and Tomb Raider where he just gets beat up the whole time.
Right.
And there's this part where like he's just crawling through this like heat vent.
Now I have seen that.
And
that's about where I got to.
You just don't. You're like, he's not gonna make it,
Yeah.
And that was a little teary-eyed for me on that one.
Yeah, JC, you said you had another one.
Yeah, I do have one. It's kind of akin to Virgil's Distant Worlds story in that it wasn't so much. It was the moment and what it meant to you in real life too. I'm back on N64, Ocarina of Time. I had a buddy who loved that game a lot, and I've never been huge into the Zelda series. Just not quite my cup of tea, but I do see how it is an awesome franchise. But he loved that game, and we played it a little bit together and whatnot, and Hootenanny. Well, he passed away, and I never finished that game, so I went back and played it. And the moment that Link stabs Ganon in the head, and everything just stops, like it's just a still shot. It just hit me. I started thinking about him, and like I gotta quit talking about it. But,
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I did think of one other from a game, and this is a game we haven't mentioned a whole lot in here, but the Telltale Walking Dead game. And that whole entire end.
Sure.
I mean, dude, the last half of episode 5, and again, that game is so amazing. I don't want to spoil it for our listeners.
Have
But
you
dude,
all played it?
I've played it, and man, it's a very, very it's sad. But I didn't, and I think it because people kept saying that building it up, you're gonna cry. That game's gonna make you cry. It's gonna make you cry. So obviously, I was built up the whole time like something sad's gonna happen.
Real quick, I want to give this is a spoiler warning for the first season of The Walking Dead, which did come out a while ago.
Right.
If you don't want it to be spoiled, maybe skip ahead a little bit. What did you guys choose on that last choice with Lee?
What was it again?
The either killing him or letting him turn.
I killed him.
I killed him.
I don't know why, and like I my Clem just fucking tailed it. Just see you, Lee. Sorry.
Yeah, I killed him for sure, man. And I'm telling you,
I don't know why. Like
that
looking
whole-
back, I'm like, why?
dude, I knew. And the thing is, the way they delivered that bite was so quick.
Oh god,
and
dude, it killed me, dude.
Yeah, and then,
it was unexpected. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
I was like,
you
man, really? Are you
serious?
fucking? Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. It was very, and from that point, I kind of got upset, but it didn't start hitting me until he started kind of having the fevers and freaking out
until you really realize.
And then
this is
that
happening.
last part where you're trying to get Clem out of there, and you're just like shuffling, and I started kind of hitting it, and then that thing, and there came the choice, and I was like, man, kill him, and she walked up to him, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I lost it.
That scene reminded me a lot of totally kind of unrelated, but I don't know if everyone's seen the movie 28 Days Later or
No, I
not.
haven't.
Great zombie flick. It reinvented that genre. Not to get too off tangent on it, but that scene with Lee and Clem reminded me a lot of, there's a scene in that movie where there's a father-daughter relationship, and the father gets hit with the virus, and he knows it, and his daughter's there, and he's like, get back, get away from me, you know?
Yeah, run.
I mean, because it's the rage virus, it hits you within like seconds, and he's like screaming at her like, get the hell away from me, like right now, and it's like, it's so fucking sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine, dude. I could not imagine. There's no way.
Well, I think this has been an awesome show, and I really hope that you guys also enjoyed listening to it. Tonight it was a super JRPG heavy podcast, and if you're into that kind of thing, I really do hope you enjoyed it, because I had a great time recording it with Kyle Eastman here to my left, Justin T. Tiller,
Thanks for having me, guys.
and Justin Carter. You can reach me at Virgis Cerberus or follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and all those. Kyle is what are you, Kyle?
Pardon me. I can't talk.
At underscore.
Isn't this
Kyle,
what we're supposed to do in this? Blah. At Kyle_Eastman on Twitter.
And that's about it.
That's about it.
JC is
Twitterless.
we got a stretch goal here on our Patreon. We don't have Patreon.
Yeah, no money. Just if you like it, subscribe to it.
Yeah, follow us on SoundCloud. Like us on SoundCloud. It helps us out a lot. Subscribe to us on YouTube.
Yeah, if it starts building a lot of momentum, I will definitely get a Twitter and
Throw the tweets.
yeah,
Throw the tweets.
We'll throw some tweets.
And what about you, TV? You got something?
I don't have a Twitter.
On
I'm
Twitter?
sorry.
Oh. Well,
Aw.
if you look up Justin T. Fatero on Facebook and you're going to be creepy, go ahead and give him a friend
Give him a creep.
request.
We'll just get one together. I mean, we are J
Yeah.
squared
They are J
on
squared.
the internet. That's what it is. So we'll just have one together.
A joint account.
Yeah, joint account J squared.
Yeah.
T, if you want to open a joint account with me.
Sure, buddy.
Well, thank you guys for listening to episode 3 of Super Turbocast. It's been a great night, and thank you for joining us.